having a hell of a game, both with 30+ yard receptions. Tanyan had another touchdown. I think that was for like 35 yards or something like that. Um, it wasn't as you know blood boiling to see MVS drop those balls because it's like, okay, you're our third, fourth, fifth option. That happens. You didn't cost us anything. But again, it would be something special to see everyone start clicking. Now, we did not see. I don't believe he could have played because of COVID rules and just being signed to the Green Bay Packers. Tavon Austin will be that new like Tyler Irvin type player who had a heck of a game here today as well. I think MVS is still going to be a part of this offense, but even less relied upon, within like the 20-yard plus plays and shorter. MVS is simply going to be there to take, this free safety off the top, pull those defenders back, and then give more room for guys like Devontae, Lazard, and hopefully Tavon Austin. And boy, am I excited to see Tavon Austin just be added into this, offense. I know it takes time for these receivers to earn Aaron's trust. Hopefully, Tavon is enough of a professional, understands the the playbook quickly enough where we see it impact. Maybe not in this first week, but definitely by this Tennessee game. The last thing I'll say about the Packers offensively is I couldn't believe it. We were down 3-0. Thankfully, the defense stepped up and was able to bump the Eagles out of field goal range that second possession. But I could not believe how efficient we were from that point on offensively, moving the ball all the way down the field and scoring on most of our drives. And their punter kind of had a career day. I felt like every other series or possession for the Packers started within the 15-yard line. There were like a handful where I feel like we got decent field position, at the 30, 35, but definitely not the 40 or 50. As far as I can remember, of course, the interception at the end of the game, was something else. But, Aaron Rodgers and company moved the ball down the field, 80 yards plus each and every drive on those touchdown drives. And that was just, fantastic to see that even though we were losing early on the field position battle, it didn't really stop us. And again, the defensive, the Eagles' defense is apparently ranked 9th overall. Now, I kind of have a problem with that ranking going into the game just because they play the NFC East. All those teams are sub 500, so they're playing very inept offenses. But still, it's a solid defense, and we really had our way with them. Every which way we want, right? Tanyan had a fantastic touchdown pass. Mercedes Lewis seemed to have the same catch that he had, I think that was last week, where he's just kind of drifting alone, 15, 20 yards down from the line of scrimmage. How he's not accounted for, I have no idea. But rushing, Aaron Jones, like I already mentioned, just overall offensively, just fantastic showing. Now I'm trying to look this stat up on the fly. Again, I'm doing this episode alone, so I can't really let Marcus talk for 5 minutes while I quickly look something up. But I believe Aaron technically got sacked twice. One was like that weird dive thing where he lost a yard, so it technically was a sack, I think. But besides that, I think he really only got sacked one other time, and it was a true sack, and that was obviously the second play of the game offensively for us. Again, our offensive line, you can't give them enough credit. Giving Aaron Rodgers time, and I think I think everyone knows you need a really good offensive line for your quarterback to do really well, and I just think people say that because you're supposed to say that and whatever, but I just think it all boiled down and came so clear. If you don't completely understand why you need a solid offensive line, that 35-yard touchdown pass to Robert Tonyan where, Aaron had a good amount of time, kind of got tripped up, and he had to take a step back for a second. And then all of a sudden, Robert Tonyan just appeared all alone, for that long touchdown pass. And it was, probably Aaron's one of his easiest touchdown passes he'll ever have in his career. And that all had to do with the fact that he had 6 seconds to throw the ball. You're watching some of these struggling quarterbacks, Carson Wentz being one of them. Zadarius and Preston and Gary were on them within 3 seconds. And, this game is different if our offensive line doesn't play as well as they did. Of course, in the passing game, like I just mentioned, but then obviously in the running game as well, right? Key blocks, kidding holes for for Aaron Jones. But all around, again, I've said this 4 times already, but I can't think of any real big negative, um, except for the couple of drops that we saw specifically from MVS. And I suppose I'm going to throw in the delay of game penalty. I don't know what it is with Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best guys of jumping, getting people to jump off sides. He's probably one of the best guys catching, one of the best quarterbacks to catch people with 12 men on the field. But I got to imagine, I'm making this stat up, or I'm assuming here, but I got to imagine he's got to be one of the most penalized quarterbacks in the NFL for delay of games. I don't know why it happens, how it happens. It just feels like every third game we're getting a delay of game, and every other game there should have been one where we probably got called on it, but we didn't get called on it because I feel like you get the extra bonus second in the NFL. Again, just to wrap up defense all around fantastic game. They said it there in like the late in the third quarter. The Eagles hadn't even entered our red zone until that point. I was getting ready to say, "Oh, this, they didn't do it. And this 4th and 18, we're going to stop them. 4th and 19, whatever it was." And then, of course, we gave up that touchdown. So technically, I'm trying to think back. Because they scored on that play, I think technically we didn't actually let them run a play within the red zone. Huh. Well done, Mike Pettin. The one glaring thing that I got to say about this game is last week, this week, and next week, again, games that we're all supposed to win. If you're even, trying to humor yourself with the conversation of being a first overall seed, you have to take care of these games. So, that being said, we took care of business, but where I see, flaws in our game where we do play, the Chiefs of the world, the Steelers of the world, the Saints again, now that they're hot. Where I see our biggest flaws, or my biggest reason to be concerned is stopping the run, of course, nothing new there. And that first 2 possessions, if they had a competent quarterback, competent, offensive scheme, so on and so forth, if they would have just kept running that ball, this game honestly could have even turned out differently. They could have controlled the clock a lot better. They got, if they would have got up 6-0 early and then continued to run the ball the way they were doing that first quarter, it could have been a long night for the Packers. So obviously, I won't be the first person that said that or the last. Second, special teams. How freaking annoying is that? I know we've kind of fixed it last year in terms of returns, and Tyler Irvin, Tavon Austin might be a new option in terms of returns. But Jesus, giving up another touchdown on special teams is just simply like unacceptable. And then to couple that with Mason Crosby missing another PAT, I guess I'm not concerned. Like I'm concerned about the defending against the punt returns. But again, just something to look at. Mason has been kind of Mr. Old Faithful, and to see him struggle on an extra point is slightly concerning. And then I don't have a brilliant punting football mind. I just don't know what the deal is with J.K. Scott. At best, he's average. And again, I just have this sneaky gut, weird suspicion that he's going to cost us some real points with a terrible punt here coming up in the next few games. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, that's my general reaction to the game. Everything was very, very positive. If you guys all watched the game, you're not learning anything new from me. But I think probably the most exciting thing about tonight is that the Seattle Seahawks lost to the New York Giants 17-12, and they were currently 8-3, of course, tied record wise with the Packers, but they had the tiebreaker and they were in the second seed. But that loss gets us a whole game in front of the Seattle. So the Green Bay Packers are currently in the number 2 seed of the NFC. Now, last year, that would have been very, very exciting because that, of course, if the playoffs started today, meant that the Green Bay Packers would have had a first-round bye. This year, the NFL expanded their playoff system. They have another wild card team, which means that only one team, the top team on both the AFC and NFC, get that first-round bye. We very much want that first round bye, especially because all of the teams that are looking like they're in that 6 or 7 seed are all like annoying teams that could probably any given Sunday beat us. The Minnesota Vikings, after starting 0-5, 4-1-4, 1 and something, just claimed if the playoffs ended today, started today, just slipped into that last playoff spot by beating the Jacksonville Jaguars in overtime. They were begging to lose, but they ended up winning. But they are currently in that spot. They have a tough road ahead of them. They still need to play Tampa Bay next week. They still need to play the Saints, both of which games will be very hard, for them. But a team that I would be a little bit afraid of to play, right? Divisional rivalry in the playoffs. Just something to think about. The team ahead of us, the only team that we're looking up at right now in the NFC is the New Orleans Saints, and we beat them handedly early on this year. Now, the Saints notoriously always have a rough start in the first, I think, 4 games that always go 2-2 or some weird stat like that, and then always seem to turn it around and end the year 13-3 or 12-4 or something like that. And again, this year they did the same thing. So thankfully we did get that win. But they are 9-2, 1 game ahead of us. But if they can fall to 3 losses, then we will have the tiebreaker, of course, on them since we did beat them early on. So, of the 2 games that I said are games we want to be watching in the preview episode last week, one of them did work in our favor. The Seattle Seahawks did lose. So really, again, you got to win your own games first. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, but we got to win our own games first. And, potentially we have a really good shot here at reclaiming that first overall seed because the Saints do need to play Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, which would be a tough game for any team. I'm glad we're not playing them this year. But that's going to be a tough game that I can definitely see the Saints losing. They also have to play the Minnesota Vikings, and they're going to be playing for their playoff lives on Christmas Day, depending on how they do against Tampa Bay here next week. So the Saints kind of have a tough road ahead of us. Our only game on paper, I'm nervous about every game for a lot of reasons, but on paper, the only team that we were worried about going into this weekend was the Tennessee Titans, and the Tennessee Titans just got destroyed by the 9-3 Cleveland Browns. Now, the Cleveland Browns are 9-3, just like the Packers, so they're a good team, I suppose, but it's still the Browns, so it feels weird that they're doing this well. But yeah, they just knocked the Tennessee down to earth a little bit. We saw what Tennessee is like with an explosive offense, which the Cleveland Browns can be if they if you get the right Baker Mayfield. Anyway, going way into the weeds here. I just like where the Packers are at. Obviously, I won a couple games back. The game that we lost against the Vikings potentially could come back to haunt us. But overall, I'm feeling really good. Specifically looking at this game, feeling really good. Everyone seems to be getting healthy at the right time. Everyone seems to be getting hot at the right time. Hopefully, Tavon Austin can seamlessly come into this offense and just make this offense a little bit more potent, a little bit more dangerous. Maybe give another kick to the special teams. Maybe we get a special teams touchdown. Hopefully you can hear from my voice that I'm very excited, and I do think this team is starting to get hot at the right time. And like we said a couple weeks ago, we might not be the best team in the NFL, but we're damn close to it, and we're getting really hot at the right time. Thank you, everybody. Apologies for any awkwardness, this being my first episode doing it solo. But I think we can all agree it wasn't too bad. But yeah, that wraps up this episode. Your Packers 30, Eagles 16. Rodgers with career touchdown pass number 400. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Subscribe to us on your favorite podcast service. And as always, everybody, go Pack, go.